course, you'll go ahead, I'll go ahead and I'll teach you how to, from scratch, to use HitFilm. There's a lot of things you can make. You can pretty much make anything dependent upon your imagination. Now, a lot of people compare HitFilm to Adobe Premiere and Adobe After Effects. I've used them for a slight amount of time, but I'll say HitFilm, it definitely does a lot of things that you would normally need or it does a lot of things that you would probably want it to do. For example, green screens. You may have a video of you talking in front of a green screen. You can go ahead, you can go down here, key, and you can basically use Chroma key, and you can filter out the green screen. You can do that, and that's something that's really awesome about HitFilm. And you can, of course, rearrange videos. You can insert tracks. So layering exists, and HitFilm is both faster and slower in some ways, and I look forward to teaching it. Now, throughout the course, I will go out, I will go through the basics, and maybe we'll do some sample projects. I'll show you how to do some simple things, and yeah, so that's pretty much it. Welcome to the first part of the basics for HitFilm for Express. Let's go ahead and let's get right into it. So what you're going to want to do is that usually you'll end up on this first page for HitFilm Express. Well, what you're going to want to do, you're going to want to click on this button called New, and you'll be able to create a brand new project. Now, I did have a project from earlier. I'm just going to click Discard. That won't show up unless you already created a project. But if I press New, it should load up for a little bit. And here we go, guys. Alright, so 1920 pixels, 1080 pixels, 30 frame rate. Now I just want to go over this. It's semi-important to know this. Depending on the type of videos you want to make, mainly you'll be just using the 720p and 1080p, but there's also video formats for other video platforms. Mainly you're just going to want to use 1080p. Now, you can adjust the width and height. Of course, you're going to want to make it 16:9, so 1280 by 768. You can do that as well. And you can adjust the frame rate. Now, I will tell you there is kind of an issue with the frame rate for some reason. I have tried to make the frame rate 60 and tried to export it. It doesn't let me. So we're just going to go with 30 frames per second. But mainly, if you want the highest quality, you want to go 1080p with 30 FPS. But just remember, the higher the quality, the longer it will take to export. Let's go ahead and let's click on Start Editing. Now, here we go. Now, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. Here is the Viewer. Here is the Media tab. Here's the Editor tab. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call this the Timeline. The timeline contains all the videos and all the audio that you need. The Media, which you can also click on here and click on Media right here. It will store all of your videos, all of your pictures, and all of your audio. And there's a couple of ways you can put media files into there. You can click on Import. You can click on this arrow and click on Media. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to go from the outside, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to import this. And you can see over here, you can look at all my videos right here. Cloud video, blue video. These are a bunch of public domain videos that I got my hands on. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drag this into here. And you can do that, by the way. So you can do that with an outside source. So you can use Window, or you can use the Explorer and drag the videos from there. And there we go. Now, it's pretty self-explanatory on what this timeline does. If you throw a video in here, you'll be able to play that video. So if I go ahead and I hold left click on a video in here, and you can scroll down, you can look through it, I can drag it into here. And depending on where I drag it, it will play at a certain time. Now, I just dragged the cloud to the beginning. If I go ahead and I click on play, it will play the video until the very end. There you go. Now, here's a couple of things you can do with videos. and I might not go over every single little thing, but they're semi-important to go into. You can make something called layers. Now, you can see here in tracks, you do have the option to create another video layer. You know, you can see this empty space. If you right-click this blank space above, you right-click anywhere actually in here, you can click on Insert Track, and it will go ahead and it will create a new track. And you can name it whatever you want. You can right-click it, and you can click on Rename, Video 2, and I can drag, for example, another video in here, and that will overlap that. So Video 2 right now is overlapping Video 1. And I can create as many of these tracks as I want to. So that's something that's really cool. Now, of course, I'm going to do Control Z. This is kind of a global thing, but if you do make a mistake, you probably want to do Control Z in order to undo something. But you can see here, this video will not completely fit into the viewer. Now, this is something that's important to keep in mind. The project is 1,920 pixels by 1,080 pixels. Now, if I throw in a video, which this is not 1,920 by 1,080 pixels, it's not the complete width, so it's just going to do this. Now, sometimes it'll ask you if you want to resize it to the project. Let me go ahead and let me delete this. Just press the click on it and press the delete button. It'll say the editor sequence settings differs from the clip that you're adding. Do you want to change the editor sequence settings? You either want to do yes or no. Mainly, if you do yes, it'll do this, but the problem is, if you drag in any more videos, they'll have trouble fitting as well. Now, you can see here, the video right now is currently it's not being fully shown. If I go ahead and I shrink this with the shrinking tool, you can see here it wasn't completely captured. So that's an issue that you will run into. So I'll do Control Z. So, a couple of things to keep in mind. You can make it fade out if you hold left click and you go to this little line down here, so you can see over here, you can make it fade out, and this would be really useful. So for example, if I had the video in the background, like for example this is the night sky, anything that overlaps it, remember, you know, you can do a lot of cool stuff like masking. Currently, you know, if I adjust the fade, it'll pause right there. You can see, you know, I can make this play and do that. And you can see how cool that is, right? It's really cool. So, yes, you could stop and start the video by pressing this button right here, or space. Now, if you want to go to any part of the video, you want to click on parts of the timeline. So, of course, if I'm at 0 seconds, I'm at 0 seconds right now. If I want to, and if you wanted to, you can actually go there you can go there manually. This is, I believe this is hour, minute, or I don't know, hour. Hour, minute, second, millisecond. So if I set this to 5, we're currently 5 seconds into the video. You can also hold Control and scroll up, and you can adjust your view. So this is 4 seconds in, 5 seconds in, and we can do this. Another thing that's really important to mention, and I'll go ahead and I'll go right here, I can actually adjust the size of the video, or adjust the size of the look, and this is called the picture-in-picture effect. You might really want to do this. You can hold Shift, and you can hold one of these squares on one of the corners, and you can resize it. So you can hold left click, and you can go down, or go diagonal, or go upright, and you can do this. Cool, isn't it? I can hold left click on the red arrow, and I can make it go left and right. If I hold left click and I move it left and right, it'll do that. I can do this with the green arrow and do this as well. And I can hold left click on the blue rectangle and I can make it rotate. And there we go. So it's really cool. Now, you know, it might render black behind it. You can see here these transparent spaces in here. It is really important for this to happen, or it's really important for this to be transparent, because you can render videos as something called an image sequence. Now, you may know that you can render videos in other video editors as a .avi or .mp4 or .mpeg, or you know, those file formats. But you can also export as an image sequence. If I click on export right here, you can see here image sequence, image .png. And if you click on export and you choose the area, it'll export every single frame. Oh, okay, go back here. It'll export every single frame as a .png. You can also choose different formats, but you know. But yeah, so a couple of questions you may have. How would you turn this back to normal if you mess this up? If you right click, now what you're going to want to do is hold left click, or you might be able to just right click it like this. You can right click it and you can click on transform, and we want to go over to this part. But if we right click and we click on transform and click on fit to frame, it will actually fit to frame. Now it will resize it to the point where it does that. Now it will look a little bit distorted. Remember that this is still 1920 by 1620 by 1000. No, 1001. Oh, okay. It's its original with an I. Sorry about that. It's 1920 by 1080 pixels, and the video is still, or the original video is still 1620 by 1080 pixels. But it resized it. So originally it was kind of like this, and it stretched it out to be like this. Now, a couple of things about the viewer. The viewer is really cool. If you want to deselect something, just click anywhere here. You can kind of also select stuff on the outside, but you know, it's you'll rarely have to you will rarely have to do that, but sometimes you will. But if I click on this button right here, or if I click on H or press H, I can pan around. If I hold Control when I scroll up or scroll down, it will zoom out, and if I scroll up, it will zoom in. If I click on here, I can zoom in, zoom out. So you know, that's the thing with the magnifying glass. That's really cool. And we'll set this to 25%. You know, that's what I actually find really cool about the viewer, the fact that it does that. Now, just to let you know, you can do that same fading effect down here with audio. So if you want to, you know, lower the volume of the audio, if you have audio down here, you would be able to, you know, adjust this little thing right here. Now, a couple of other things that's important to note. If I right click this and I click on speed, if you lower the percentage, now right now it's at 100% speed. If you make it 25% of its speed, it's going to make it go 4 times, or it's going to be 4 times slower. Or it's going to take 4 times the time it would have to have that video go. If I set this to 50%, it's going to be twice as long. And if I click on OK, you can see the video has gone twice in size. And you can see how slow it is. Now, if I set this speed and duration, and you can, by the way, click on right here, and you can specifically state how long you want it to be, and it will auto-adjust it. But you can right-click speed duration. If I set this to 200%, it will be 2 times faster. This is something that you're going to want to do some testing with, but it's really cool. So if I click on here, you can see the video is much faster, and it's beautiful, guys. It's very beautiful. Let's see if we have anything more. Mainly, you're just going to want to know about fit to frame. Now, something important to also note, here, if I go ahead and I click on a video right here, and I click on effects, or no, if I click on trimmer, this is a video of a guy opening a door. I have a little bit of a preview right here, and I can view the video right here. But I can select a part of this video and throw the video onto the timeline. Now you can see over here it's a guy opening the door. If I go ahead and I stop at the point that I want him to want the video to start, I can click on Move Playhead to Start. Or no, sorry, Set In Point. And if I wanted to end off at him opening the door, I can click on Set Out Point. And if I click on Insert Clip, and I click on no because it's not completely the size. You can see right here that it went at that exact, it went at that exact point. Now, if I go ahead and I go over to here, you can see here, you can see that little delay, and you can see the end of the video. This auto trimmed for it. Now, if you already have the video in the timeline, you can also auto trim. It is a little bit difficult, which I don't really like. But if you go and you hover over the start or the beginning, you can shorten the video by holding left click on the start, and you can move it to the right. And you can see how cool this is. And you can crop out the right by shrinking, moving to the left, and doing that. So it went ahead and it cropped out a point. Now, of course, it's pretty self-explanatory, but if I want to have a video run after another video, what I would do is I would drag in that video. I would drag in the video, but you know, I can make it go on the timeline so you can see here this is where it starts. But currently this is like over a minute in. If I drag in a video after that, it will run that video again. I can also drag the video over there. And you know, I can also throw a video here. I can also have nothing play in the middle. So that's something that's really cool. Now, let's just say I wanted to split two clips. Now, if I go ahead and I get this video of this cute little dog, you can see here. You can see here this dog. That guy handed a little treat to that cute little dog. We'll go ahead and we'll fit to frame. But let's just say I want to split the video. If I right click this and I click on slice, so depending on where the this little handle is right here, you can right click the video and you can click on slice and you can slice it in half. Let's just say I want to cut out this part in the middle. Just click on this. I can either drag it and throw into any other layer I want. It looks like you can create your own custom layers here as well, which is really cool. So you can do that. But I just cut into the middle of it. You can see over here, you can notice the skip. So you can see here, you know, we didn't really cut into it that much, but you know, you can see. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it on the basics. You know, I hope you learned something. This is pretty much, you know, the basics of HitFilm Express. You could technically use this knowledge and make pretty much anything you want, but HitFilm has a lot more features, and that's what I'll be getting into in the next lecture. See ya. I want to go into how to use a Chroma key effect, and I want to go into make the composite shot. Now, you know, it might be pretty obvious right now. HitFilm Express is inspired or has very similar features to Adobe Premiere and Adobe After Effects. Now, if you go ahead and you drag in a clip, or maybe if you even select a clip, or yeah, if you right-click the clip, you will have the option to select it and click on Make a Composite Shot. Now, what does Make a Composite Shot do? It basically creates a copy of that video that has certain effects on it. Now, if I click on the video, or you can also right-click the video you want and click on Make a Composite Shot. If I click on this, and I click OK, you can just ignore this. Here we go. So right now, this is a version of the of that dog video, and we can right click and we can click on transform to fit to frame. We'll do that right now. But you can see, you know, it's like a normal video, but it has something called a layer. Now, this will allow us to do certain things with the video, and it's quite amazing. We can apply effects to it, and you know, we can do something called tweening, where we have, you know, the video do stuff like, you know, shrinking, rotating, moving around, and we can set keyframes for it to transition into those points. Now, tweening is the act of, tweening is when the computer fills in those animation slots for you. You'll go ahead and I'll show you very soon. But you can see here, here's opacity. Now, right now, if I go ahead and go into this layer, currently the layer just contains the entire video. Now, it has masks, effects, tracks. Here in transform, we can actually set its opacity, we can set its position. So if I hold left click on here, if I click on this guy right here and I move this guy around, you can see his position is moving. And I can set its scale and hold shift and do this. And I can set its rotation and do this. Now, what if I told you that I could do something called, or I can set keyframes. If I go ahead and I click this button right now, it just set a keyframe at the beginning. Now, right now, we don't have another keyframe set, so nothing's going to happen. But if I go ahead and I drag this to, for example, 5 seconds, and I set the opacity to 50%, it automatically set a keyframe for us. Now, if we go ahead and we click on this button right here, you can see that very slowly, in a period of 5 seconds, it will fade into opacity, or into the 50% opacity. It didn't do it immediately, it just very slowly did it. You can do this with many other effects and such. Now, if we go ahead and we go into position, now, of course, if you want to go ahead and you want to capture these keyframes, it's self-explanatory. Just click on this circle right here. Make sure you start at the point that you want, so make sure you drag this guy to the beginning. So don't do that. But we'll go ahead, we'll go here. We'll drag this guy to 5 seconds, and we'll go ahead and we'll move this guy up. So hold left click, and yes, you can move him left and right like this. We'll go ahead and we'll move him out of the way. We go ahead and we click on this guy. You can see it moves the video up, which is really cool. Now, if I go ahead and I move this guy to 10 seconds, it'll do it slower. Now, if I go ahead and if I move this guy right here, so for example, if I move the first keyframe to here, I can set it right here, and you can see it's going to wait, and then it's going to very quickly do that. So you can move around keyframes. You can go ahead and you can set a new keyframe if you want to. So if you go ahead and you move this guy right here, it'll do this, so it'll do this and this and this. And you can, of course, set the position. You want to go to this certain point in the timeline, make sure it's paused, but you can do that. So, and it'll do that. If we go ahead and if we click on this guy, let's see here. So if I click on smooth in, just curious. So but yeah, it's pretty much it. If you want to go ahead, you want to delete a keyframe, you can click on this, click left click, click left click. You want to toggle keyframe. You can, of course, set a keyframe right here, and if you set a keyframe and it's selected, you can modify it as you please. So you can do that. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. And we'll do the last thing. We'll go ahead, we'll change the position back to 0, 0, so you can click left click right here and modify it. Now if we go ahead and we go down to scale, we can set scale over here, and I think this will be the coolest part. I go ahead and I set this, it'll shrink the video. So, you know, for example, you know, I could do this, and, you know, I could go ahead and I could drag in another video under it, and, for example, this is a cool video under it. If I right click, transform fit to frame, you know, it is really random, but it does that. But, you know, that's pretty much self-explanatory. Now, I will say this specific composite shot, if you go ahead and you drag this into here, it'll be thrown into the media section, and you can see here this is very different. If I go ahead and I drag the plain video file that we created a composite shot from, it's not going to be affected by it. So this currently has the effects, this doesn't. So Make Composite Shot is very similar to the Adobe After Effects feature, but, you know, let's go ahead and let's see here. But let's go ahead and let's get right into Chroma key. Now, there's multiple ways to do this. Now, you can either create a composite shot, or you can just go into the plain effects and drag it in. I prefer to just make it the composite shot. We'll go ahead and we'll create a brand new composite shot from this. And yes, you can rename the composite shot if you want to. So I could say green screen dog. And if I go ahead and I click on effects, there's a lot of effects here. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go into key. And we're going to want to go into hue and RGB key. And we want to drag it. Hold left click and drag it onto the layer. Now just to let you know, if you don't want to use composite shots, you can drag it onto the actual video. If this wasn't a composite shot, just drag it onto the video. But you can see your green screen dog. Now what we're going to want to do is now it's in effects. If we go down here, we can check the color. Now you can see here, we can set the color of the chroma key. And if you don't know how chroma key works, basically, you have a video of someone standing in front of a pink screen, blue screen, red screen, white screen, or any type of color screen, and you remove that color from their background, and you can of course use the video for whatever you want. So for example, this is a video of a dog. Now I will say, I will warn you, this video isn't exactly perfect. There is some green on the side, so there will be some flaws with the video. But there's a couple of ways to configure which color you want to remove. You can click here. So you can click here and you can hover over here. You can do that. We're going to do Control Z, or you can hold left click onto this guy right here, this color picker. And the weird thing is that it actually does the color picking onto parts of the editor, which if you notice right here, it does that. But if we go ahead and we hover into here, there we go. Now, there's a couple of ways you can adjust the tolerance. The tolerance is basically the strength. Just remember, when you have a video of a person or anything in front of a green screen, usually the green screen's colors are not going to be completely perfect, so you can't just completely get rid of that one color. You have to get rid of all the colors that are similar to it. Now, the higher this tolerance is, the more similar colors it will pick out. Now, if we set this to 30%, it'll be stronger. If I set this to 10%, it will choose less shades of, the color that we chose, so anything resembling it. You can also hold left click on it, and if I hold left click onto here, and you can see this little symbol, if I hold left click onto the percentage sign and I move it to the left very slowly, I can do this. And if I move it to the right very slowly, I can do this as well. Now, if I want to set up the edge softness, this is so it, you can see it's really exact, but I can make it slightly soft, so it's, not completely, pixely. So I can do this. I can completely decrease. Now, of course, this does take a lot of testing, so this is really important. Now, another feature, invert. Also, if you want to check exactly everything you are covering, if I click on left click, this will show everything that's being covered right now. But, everything in the background is getting removed. You can see here. It's a cute little dog. There is some green on him, so we can't completely, get rid of certain points. But if we go ahead and we go into RGB, by the way, let's see here. We can also be really precise right here. If we go ahead and we go into tolerance. Mainly, you're just going to want to stick with hue, but if you have an exact color, maybe it's probably better to use RGB. But now, if I go ahead and this is something that's really cool to show. If I click on tolerance, if I'm selected on tolerance, let's go ahead and let's go from 100. Let's click on this keyframing tool. Let's move this guy to 10. And let's set this guy to 0. And we'll see what happens. So like I said, it transitions that number into the other number. So it fills in the space in between and animates it. And we'll go ahead and why not we do this with edge softness too. edge softness. We'll make it very slowly right here. But if we go ahead and we click play and we play the video very slowly, the dog is going to appear. And very slowly the edge softness is going to increase. Now if you want to configure the edge softness in the middle, you can of course do this. You can either grab this and drag this guy right here, or you can set it up in the middle of this and do that. But we'll go ahead and we'll remove the edge softness part, because I don't really, see, check that out. So that went all the way to 0%. So that's something that's really cool to see. Invert. There's not really any difference between, I don't really actually see how you could do that with the invert tool. Invert, invert, invert. How would you transition into that? I'm curious. Alright, it would just change that immediately. Alright. That's weird. But anyways, guys, that's pretty much it on compositing. If you use any other effects, you can pretty much click on this button right here, or you can click on this button right here. And another important, one last thing, you can also switch between these keyframes by clicking on this, and this, and this. Alright guys, so this is a really important thing to go into. It's called masking. Now this is probably one of the coolest features. I really love this feature, actually. Make composite shut. Go ahead and we change this right here. Set this guy to transform, fit to frame. But if we go ahead and we click on, actually if we click on the video, if we click on the layer, we can actually do something called setting a mask. Now, what if we wanted to completely get rid of, the wall on the right? We could do something called masking. Now, there are multiple different types of masks. We're going to go ahead and we're going to use a freehand mask, and we'll click on this guy. We'll click on a random point. So we'll click on a point right here. And we could be as precise as possible, but if I click on any other point, it will create a line. Now, anything that's contained in this line, so we're going to want to create a polygon with this freehand tool. We can even select outside if we want to. I'll do Control Z. But if we create a polygon, anything inside of it will be captured, and we can use it. Now, if we go ahead and we click, and we go ahead and we click on the last rectangle, we can also hold left click on the rectangle and adjust it. You can see over here, I can click on the mask, by the way, to adjust it as well. But you can see here's the video. If I go ahead and I go into here, we went ahead and we just masked out that certain part. Now if we go ahead and we go into mask, there's shape, roundness, path, opacity. If we go ahead and we change its path, see here, see how we do this. We might be able to do this. Can we? That's something that's also worthy to note. If I press left click on the line, it'll create a new little rectangle I can control. If I go over here and I hold left click, it will actually go ahead and it will adjust the mask for us. So you can see over here it automatically works with that mask. You can also set the opacity. I've already shown you how to do that, but mainly path is really important. So if you want to modify that mask, you can do that. Now, if you want to go ahead and you want to drag in another mask, or you want to create a new mask, you can click on Eclipse Mask. We'll go ahead and we'll click on this, click on Eclipse, and if you accidentally create a mask by accident, just left click on it. But if I hold left click and click on this, hold left click, and I create this, and we'll go ahead and we'll delete the other mask. Looks like the above mask overrides it, but you can see over here, you can darken, non-intersect, place. Just curious, actually. Subtract. So if you go ahead and you create a mask over it or under it, you can drag it if you want to, but if you put it under it and you set it to subtract, it will actually, remove that selection above it. So you can see here, subtract, and there's a hole in the middle. So if I do this, and I could throw anything I wanted to in there. If I set this to darken, might do something. If I drag it over, might darken it. Lighten, replace, subtract. But mainly you're going to want to pay attention to subtract, add, none. Personally, I don't even know why this is even a thing, none. Maybe this could be for testing, but... And lastly, for masking, the rectangular mask. So if I go ahead and I hold left click or I click that, I'll click here, and if I hold left click and I drag it, I can actually create a rectangular mask. And by the way, if you click intersect, I guess it'll grab everything around it. So that's what happens when you add to it. So that'll add to the mask. But you can see here, if I drag this guy above, I grab this, drag this, I can go ahead and I can grab any part of it. I can create a rectangular mask. If I want to go ahead and I want to set the path, I can go right here, I can go over here, and see if I can configure this mask right here. Yeah, so right here you can see I'm grabbing the keyframes and I can do it like this. Or if I want to be really precise, I can do it like that, do it like this. Now personally, I would like it if you would be able to, shrink it, or, it wouldn't affect the other side. But let's go ahead and let's see what happens when we do that. So you can see here, that's another really cool masking effect. We'll go ahead and we'll drag this guy a little bit further to see what happens. So for example, I'll do that. But yeah, that's pretty much it on my lesson on masking. If you want to throw a video behind it, like if you click on media, just say we have this video right here. Fit in frame. So this is masking it. Anything behind it, it's not shown. But you can see right here, it did that. Go into motion tracking. So here we go. It's really simple. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna drag in our video. We're gonna transform it, fit to frame, and you can see here is our nice little butterfly guy. And what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to go into you're gonna want to make it into a composite shot. And something that I should have mentioned earlier, in composite shots you can actually drag in multiple videos and such, and you can almost treat it as if it's its own timeline. Now what makes it significant compared to the editor is that this very own video that this composite shot is making has the animation system. Now in this you can actually create your own custom little layers, and if we go ahead and we do this, we can create a camera, create a new light. There's so many amazing things we can do. But if we go ahead, grab this light, This is just, you know, one of the cool features that it has. Light, color, intensity. But currently at the moment we're going to want to focus on text. Now there's two ways to create text. You can either set the size, you can click on new layer, click text, and then set the size, or we'll go ahead and we'll drag this guy over here. We can left click this, and you're going to want to click on this button right here. Click on this button to scroll over here and go into text. And you can click on this guy in order to create a text box. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to create text saying butterfly. And you can see here, butterfly, butterfly. And you can modify the text by highlighting it, going down into here. And you can make the text bigger. You can make the text even bigger. And you can also change the font of the text. Now, personally, I prefer this guy. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose him. There's some other things you can do. You can create a little outline, and this is the outline feature. We have to increase the outline here, though. Let's set this guy to 1, butterfly 2. So right here is the color. This is the color for the, or this is the color for the regular text. This is the outline. Here we go. And go ahead. I find that quite weird. I don't know why I created that new text thing, but we'll go here. And if we go click here, we can select it. We can move them around. If we click on the text tool, we can modify them. So something I did notice, like I was wondering why I couldn't modify it. You're going to want to go into this text tool and highlight it in order to modify it. And if you highlight certain parts of it, so for example, you know, the Y, if I wanted to make the Y like slightly blue, I could do that. Or if I wanted to adjust the... Okay, I don't know why it's not doing that with color, but sometimes it'll select it. You know, it's a little bit buggy sometimes. Alright, go ahead, go back here. But we'll do Control Z. And here's butterfly. So here's the text. Now next thing, we want to go into tracks. Open up the media file, which is this file right here in the layers. Click on the plus sign right here, and we've just created our very first tracker. Now you may notice and you may think, what is this green rectangle and what is this red rectangle? Now what the red rectangle does is it captures, or whatever's in the red rectangle in the beginning, the red rectangle will follow. Whatever's in the green rectangle, it will search for that object. So it might lag out HitFilm Express if you completely search through the whole entire thing. Now if I click on this and I drag this guy throughout the whole entire thing, it will search this through this whole entire video, everything here, and it'll do that. Now mainly I'm just going to do it like this. Now over here is the red box. We can adjust his size. Now, you know, hold left click, move him around. If I, you know, hold left click on here, I can adjust the size of this guy. I can do this. And I can move around the point, hold left click. I can move him under, or I can move him over, move him left and right. Now, when this red box will move around whenever whatever it's capturing moves around. Now this guy right here, this guy, whenever this moves to the left, this little point here will move to the left. Now it will in the tracker, and it has its very own little setting here, tracking point. It will have something called feature position, and when we go ahead and we run the tracker, it will go ahead and it will capture all the points, and this tracker will follow it around. And we can go ahead and we can move this position, or we can mirror this position onto another layer and make that layer move around as if it was this point. And I'll go ahead and I'll show you. Now you don't really need to do any of these other things. Mainly just keep it on single point optical flow. But what you're going to want to do is when you're at the beginning, click on track forward, and it will go ahead, and you can see right here that it's moving around. Now, if you have anything else, if you have a video of a soccer ball, a drone, or whatever, that's also fine. Sometimes it kind of stops playing for some reason. I don't know why it does, but just keep on turning it on, or keep on playing. We'll go ahead, we'll set this on. I don't know how long this video is. If I keep on pressing, I could just keep repeatedly pressing this. I'll just keep doing this, and I'll go up to, now, yeah, for some reason in the end, it's doing that, but sometimes it auto turns off for some reason. I don't know why it does. I will say this is just a thing with HitFilm. It's usually really laggy. Remember, when it's analyzing every single little frame, you know, it is resource intensive. I do have a powerful PC, so it, you know, I have a GTX 1060 in my computer, and it's this slow. No, it's normal. It's normal for videos to be like that. Now you can see right here, if I go ahead, you see apply to layer, just stick with transform. Now, if you have a layer, like for example, if you have an image in this layer, so if you have an image in media and drag it into here, you can also apply it to image, but we want to apply this to text. By the way, you can rename layers right here by right-clicking and doing rename, so I'm just going to call it butterfly, and if I go right here, and I go into, click on tracks, and I click here. So, and by the way, just so you know, look, if you look down here, these are all the keyframes that it tracked. This is all the points that it tracked. Now, if I go ahead and I apply to layer, click on butterfly, click on apply. Now, this tracker, currently we're only seeing this layer, but if we look on the butterfly layer, now it doesn't show that, but if we go into the viewer, we go into editor, go ahead and play, you can see here the butterfly text is following around the butterfly. And you can see here very, very slowly it's moving around. So that's something that's really cool that I find about that. Now, of course, if you try to do something really, really complicated, HitFilm might not be able to track it, but right now it's tracking that head and body of that butterfly. So you can see, move around, it moved a little bit up and it moved that up. So that point, and just to demonstrate what that point does, if we go ahead and we go to the beginning, and we'll go ahead and by the way, yes, you can select points by holding left click and doing that. It's lagging a little bit. But if we go ahead, if we want to tracker, we went to the beginning, and optical flow. Now you see here, now something I do find really weird, sometimes you may have to click on this button and then move this to the beginning and delete some of those points in order to reset it. But you can create new trackers by clicking right here. Now let's go ahead, let's, for example, change the point right here. Go ahead and go here. I'll change the point to over here. And you'll get the point. You'll get the point. That's an unintentional pun. But you can see here, it's following it around. Now, if I go ahead and I pause this, I click on none, click on apply, I'll select the layer, click apply, and butterfly should be able to follow it around. Now, if I go ahead and I click on viewer, and I click on right here, you can see here, butterfly is following it around. Now, it's really precise, you can see here. Now, we didn't completely get rid of some of the stuff in here, so for example, you see the other point, we didn't completely capture it, that's why I went back there, but you can see we placed the point right there. It does take a little bit of estimating and such, but you know, that's really important. But if, you know, we can move this guy around if we wanted to. So if we do this, do that for one little frame, and it'll do that. So I'm going to finally go into how to export your project. It's really easy. What you're going to want to do, click on export. So, and just to let you know before, if I, for example, you will, before wanting to export, you want to check if you accidentally like threw a video at the end or whatever, you know, because it will fill in those little spots right there. But you can see over here, here's butterfly. It's really cool. But if I click on export, it'll currently tell us the length of the video. So it's 15 seconds, as you can see here, 15 seconds long. Now we can export the video if we don't want the audio. Just uncheck export audio. And we can indicate the frame rate. So if I set this to 60, and like I said earlier, it does act weird. It doesn't want me to use that for some reason. So go with 30. Aspect ratio, you can just set with 1.0. You can set the width and height to whatever you wish, but if, for example, you're creating an Instagram video, you should have done it in the project settings in the first place. But, you know, if you want one of those types of videos where the video is like 1,000 by 1,000 pixels, you should have done it in the project files in the first place. But if you want it to be 1080 by 1080, you can just put it in there like that. But some stuff might go wrong because it's not originally like that. But you can see here, export area, content area, work area, entire timeline. Now if you import the entire timeline, that's actually kind of a weird thought, but yeah, you're going to want to just use content area. It looks like the entire timeline is everything in here. I could zoom in by the way, going over here. You can see it's the entire timeline. It's weird. But if we go export, 4 hours. Yeah, we don't want to export 4 hours. Content area. Click on export, and of course if you want your audio to be higher quality, you increase, you know, the kilobytes per second, but I'm fine with this. Export, and you can see here we are currently now in here, and we're going to name this butterfly, and we're going to say save. And I am quite surprised. It doesn't really take that long to export. Now remember, the longer it takes to export, or the more detailed it is, the longer it's probably going to take to export. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click play. You can see right here, the video is complete. Now that little thing we did in the middle, it did that. Well, you can see how high quality it is. It's nice. Now one last thing I do want to go into, or a couple, well, I always say one last thing, but a couple of things I want to go into. You see this text right here. If you click this button right here, it will set it to motion blur. What motion blur does is whenever it moves around, it will create like a special little blur right there. And I'll go ahead and I'll throw this effect onto the actual video itself. I'll drag this guy into the video. And it might not be for this case. I'll go ahead and I'll export this guy again. What motion blur does, it is self-explanatory. Replace. It will make it blur for a little bit. So you may notice in games, for example, if you look to the side, it slightly blurs, you know, when you're moving around quickly and looking around quickly. That's what basically is happening. Now if we go ahead, time remaining 30, 29 seconds, 28 seconds, 26 seconds, 25 seconds, 24 seconds, 23 seconds, 22 seconds. But yeah, you definitely, like I said, all we had to do was add one little special effect, and we 3 times. It took 18 seconds, I believe, to export. Now look at this. Well, you know what? That is normal, you know, with video editing software. But I love HitFilm. There's a lot of features. It's cool. Go ahead and we click play. And you can see right here, there's a special little motion blur right here. Now you can see the motion blur is kind of around here too, but you can see motion blur. So there you can see it like moved to the right like that. It did that very quickly because of it, but that's that's the result. Now I don't know what would happen. What would happen if we just unselected? Okay, if we did this. Now, this would be gigantic. So I'm not going to do it like this. I'm just gonna delete this. Actually, first off, let me save the file. So if you want to save your file, just click Save As. We'll name this project Butterfly, and there you go. And that's already saved. But if we go here, delete, we go into Media, drag. Let's just take, for example, this, and we'll really cut this short, like really cut this short. So this is a really short video. So, but remember, there is going to be a lot of frames involved. If we compile this into an image sequence, prefix image, so you can set the image. So I could say HitFilm, export. We want to state which folder, and it's going to go ahead and it's going to create those little files for us. Now, I went ahead and I'll drag this guy right here. Over here is our image sequence. So it took every single frame and it turned it into a .png image. Now, like I said, you're probably going to want to avoid this as much as possible, but if you're making a game, for example, this might really work. There's also a lot of other cool stuff you might be able to make, like GIFs. But it took every single little frame of the video and it turned it into a .png. Now this is 9 megabytes large. This folder, which I just checked. So that's important to keep in mind. So yeah, make sure you consider that. You can also decrease the width and height in order to decrease the file size. But yeah, that's pretty much it I have for this lesson. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create an intro. Congratulations. Let's go ahead and let's create our intro. Now, it looks like that we're going to need something in order to create a composite shot. So let's go ahead, let's drag video, we'll click on new. We're going to press new, composite shot. And we don't actually need a video for it, so we'll click on OK. And currently there's nothing here right now. Now we're going to go ahead, go into new layer. We're going to go into text, and we're going to say, we're going to write some text saying cool guy. And you can see right here our text is selected. We'll go ahead and we'll highlight this. So and we can adjust the color, so we can make it red, and we can make it do this on the outside. And the cool thing is we can actually adjust the size between it. And we can set it to bold. So, let's just say we have an intro, we're introducing cool guy. We'll go ahead, we'll go from the top, so transform, position, and we'll go in half a second, we'll go down here. And we'll create some other text right here. So, we can go ahead and we can introduce the guy. So we'll say, cool videos. And then, we'll set it to maybe blue. We'll set the outside to blue. Content daily. So when cool guy finally gets to here, we can actually compare, and we'll delete this guy right here because we don't need him. We can compare the timelines here. So here's transform, here's position. We're going to set position to right here. So currently this guy's right here. And we'll say in the next 5 seconds, we'll very, very quickly go from here into here. And finally, we're going to set the opacity of these, and we're going to make them both fade out and make them both go to 0% in just a couple of seconds. Now this is very basic. If you want to throw an image in the composite shot, you can if you want to. But if we throw in composite shot 11 into here, let's go ahead and let's run it. Now one more thing, motion blur, motion blur. Go ahead and run them. Now, if we want to go ahead and we want to decrease the time it takes, you know, we do want to line this up a little bit, but so yeah, look at this cool intro, guys. Cool guy, cool videos, content daily. So that's pretty much it. So if I go ahead and I export, let's go to MP4, we'll export the video, and we'll just say cool intro. And let's go ahead and do this. Time elapsed, time remaining. So like I said, motion blur slows it down nearly 3 times. This probably would be 10 seconds or less long if this had no motion blur. We go ahead and we play. Did I ever put anything at the end? That's odd. Content area. Did I set this to go longer than... Okay, if you want to cut this off, we would want to go over here and trim it. So you could do that. But it looks like it doesn't auto end, so you're going to have to do that manually. But anyways, guys, that's pretty much it, and thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.